Welcome to Civil Dissent. These podcasts are about you. Ron and I are speaking as citizen activists, reacting to the explosive events of the time affecting us all. In the spirit of the fairness doctrine, we will air conflicting views, and you will determine what is valid. We will provide you with leads and contacts for government, business, community organizations, and more for you to take action. In democracy, information and participation are the key. Use your key, your voice, for a better world. Between Dr. Ian and myself, we have traveled to more than a dozen countries, studied political science, anthropology, communications, and more. We differ on our views, but agree friendship is more important than differences, and we invite you to feel the same way. Let's begin by checking in on what has recently caught our attention. Ron, what has your attention and why?
Well, thank you for asking, Ticia. Well, the big issue that caught my attention, and I think the world's attention, is the almost coup in Russia this week. And it was such a grave attack against the impervious image that Mr. Putin tried to portray to his citizens and the world. He has less control than we thought. There's obviously palace intrigue going on in the Kremlin, and it appears that he's going to have to be watching over his shoulder for quite some time now because there are competing rivalries. But this all fits into the larger context of the war and the fight for democracy. The people of Ukraine have surprised everyone except themselves in their ability to fight off the Russian bear, to out-manipulate, outthink, outmaneuver the second strongest army in the world and make a good fight of it. And now 25,000 fewer fighters are at the disposal of Mr. Putin and his generals. And this comes right in the spring when a counteroffensive is underway by the Ukrainian military forces. And so better equipped and motivated to save their homeland, this is a real blow against the Kremlin, against their supposed world power, and it makes them out to be the petty dictatorship that they really are. So kudos to the fighters of Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. Again, they remind me of the revolutionaries of our own country fighting for their freedom, and the United States and a strong NATO are right there with them, backing them up every step of the way.
Oh, really? Let me tell you something. Everything you've said would be great if this were the first day that Russia crossed into the borders of Ukraine, which is when action should have been taken. In fact, prior to that, in order to prevent what happened. Every mistake that was made with Hitler is being made with Russia, okay? Appeasement when they took over Crimea. And then out of fear, okay, of Putin's reaction, not providing the Ukrainians with the military help and air power that they needed. The Ukrainians would be the first to say, look, we're grateful for everything you've done. However, all of it has led to the decimation of our cities, the blood of our people being spilled, and much of it unnecessary had you given us the planes that we asked for in the beginning, which could have been done by the administration because the Poles were willing to let their MiGs fly to Ukraine with Ukrainian pilots to use on a line 40 miles long of Russian tanks. No, instead, the administration let those tanks get out of the mud and proceed to decimate towns, villages, cities. It's ridiculous. And the poor Ukrainians would be the first to tell you that from the beginning, they should have had air superiority, which they're still waiting for. They're still waiting for it. There is no excuse.
Well, as I recall, the oath of office taken by the president is to preserve and protect the United States of America. And I do recall, too, that the Ukrainians were actually the last people to think that they would be invaded by Russia.
Listen.
Even though the United States was telling them time and again, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And the people who, of course, have relatives in Russia and they have cousins and siblings, they could not imagine early on that they would be attacked by Russia. They're saying that this is just more usual noise that we get every few years.
I'm not defending the fact that they made a mistake by dismissing a lot of the signals that were sent to them and information that was given to them. However, that being said, that this administration held back when now what you have is you have Russia in a country with 15 nuclear plants, okay, occupying the biggest nuclear plant in Europe, okay? You have Russia now. You talk about the NATO coming together. You have Russia now having NATO and every country associated with NATO in economic, chaos, all right? That's what's been accomplished so far by holding back out of fear. Ridiculous.
Well, again, the oath of office by the president is to the people of the United States.
So keep us safe from nuclear disaster, which right now we're on the precipice of.
Well, actually, I don't see it that way. Day one, we did not know the enemy. We did not know anything about Putin. We didn't know anything about Putin.
We didn't know the enemy.
We didn't.
The same kind of garbage that was said when everybody was appeasing Hitler. Same kind of fear and garbage that has no place in American foreign policy.
Well, as a matter of fact, there were many people, particularly in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who know something, who felt that, yes, if he were cornered early on, Putin might begin World War III. That's the last thing we want.
Now he's in a far better position than then, quite frankly, and now he has more reason than ever to act, irrationally because he's a cornered animal.
Well, it's interesting that you say he controls some of the nuclear grid in Ukraine, but you know what? With time, we now know he hasn't used it. He could have ended this really quickly by blowing up one of those plants. But we now know with time that at least he's not mad. He is evil.
And he's not stupid either.
Right, but he's not a madman. And so, he's not North Korea. And so, no, he doesn't want nuclear war. And now we see that. And the president has enough evidence, and NATO has enough evidence to see, well, we're not going to go to nuclear war. We can up our game.
And this stupid administration couldn't see that from the beginning,
no.
Which was obvious to just about everybody.
Really?
Just about everybody was obvious.
Oh,
okay?
I see. Except for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the entire cabinet.
The Joint Chiefs of Staff the Joint Chiefs of Staff take orders, okay? They can voice their opinions, and we don't know exactly what their opinions were. What we know is what the administration has been doing, which has been holding them back.
Well, we do know what General Milley said when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Don't do the following because this could lead us to World War III. And I like brass hats that say, hold on a minute, let's consider all the implications. A lot better.
The implications have led to now almost 20% of Ukraine being occupied by Russia,
right.
Which didn't have to happen from day one when they crossed over and their tanks were stuck in the mud.
No,
okay.
Yeah.
Also, this could have been ended much earlier through a different type of negotiation. Instead of, for instance, our questionable Secretary of State and questionable representatives of the administration constantly trying to back off and appease, et cetera, had taken the stand with some balls.
Well, the fact is this administration was being very careful to protect the United States of America. And as a matter of fact,
that's why our dollar looks like crap right now.
This president is the one who united NATO.
Listen,
he is the leader of NATO and the leader of the free world.
Listen, that uniting of NATO is another folly. All that has happened with that uniting of NATO is you've created a cluster mess because now you have more than 30 countries that have to have some sort of consensus before acting. What kind of a joke is that when your enemy can act on a dime?
Well, except that NATO's gotten stronger than ever, and it's Russia that seems to be running out of gas.
What a
NATO
joke.
is contributing more and more.
No.
Putin is losing. Why is Putin losing? Why is he losing every day?
Listen, his army
is losing
poorly
to
trained.
NATO.
poorly
He's
trained.
losing to a strong
Poorly
NATO.
trained. That's the reason that they're losing. They're
Germany's
poorly trained.
contributing.
But they now have,
Great Britain is
but they
contributing.
now have the Abrams
Finland
tank. But
is
they now have
contributing.
access to the Abrams tanks technology.
More
they
and
now
more
have
and
access
more.
to the Leopard technology.
Right.
And this is after my speaking to people in the military, by the way. Okay? Because what the question was to them that I posed, when those tanks, okay, had to be abandoned, was there any kind of a fail-safe system to destroy the technology on them? Okay? And unfortunately, what was admitted is no. And that is very dangerous. And it is even more dangerous that now you have Russia occupying pretty much 20% in all of this time, an entire year, mostly 20% of a country that has 15 nuclear plants.
Right.
And in charge of the biggest nuclear plant.
Right, and they have not moved on any of them.
And that is not protecting the United States in any way. And and this whole thing with NATO is NATO has dragged its countries, okay, into economic disaster, slowly but surely. Yes, plus depleted their own munitions. Okay,
interesting.
Let's talk about that the money should be being traced.
Well, if you
where the money is being traced and why the media is not tracing where is the money going is a shame. It's disgusting.
Right, except that countries like Germany and even Finland, their economies are really strong, and I don't know where you get this false information.
Not true.
And
not true.
Well, I'm sorry.
Not true.
Sorry, you can't gauge
not true.
affluence.
Not true.
Why don't you come up with an original thought rather than that idiom, which is a non-think? You're just going on and on and on. But the fact is that the United States...
You are buying the Kool-Aid, and it's sad. Very sad that you're buying the Kool-Aid.
Well, I think the right does it a lot better than we do.
Yeah.
They're Kool-Aid fixated and addicted. But the fact is that NATO was almost falling apart under the last administration.
What a joke.
He would have pulled us out of NATO.
NATO wound up giving more money than they have ever given, which is money that their countries have siphoned off to their social programs while criticizing us, and we were picking up the tab.
They were losing organizational structure.
No, now
and people didn't care.
With the cluster,
and
with
the United
cluster
States
method
wasn't caring about
losing.
NATO.
Now that
so
the
it's the fault of the last administration, and it's time that you admit it.
Yeah.
That it was the last administration that destroyed.
Take a look at the economies of the country.
We can't count Britain because of Brexit.
Situation and the destruction that unnecessarily has occurred in Ukraine
because of the disaster of Brexit under a conservative government. Although it was supported,
story, which we will address on another show.
Exactly right.
Which we can address on another
Boris
show.
Johnson was wrong again,
but now
and he lied to his own people about it.
That's a whole other story.
Yes, it is.
And a whole other show.
Sure, that's putting your thumb on the scale.
No,
that's just
you
Britain.
putting your thumb on the scale because you've run out of
Italy.
You've run out of information.
So no, let me say the information now is why is it that Putin is losing every day? Why does he look ridiculous to the world? He's losing every day, and he's cost his own country 250,000 people. You think he made the right decision? What his perception was, and American intelligence said the war is over in 4 days. We even thought that. So why would you engage in a all-out attack against the Russian tanks when it might lead to nuclear war, and the war is over in 5 days? That was our assessment. Sorry, that was our assessment.
Clearly,
and
all
it was
the dead
Putin's
bodies
assessment.
of the Ukrainians show how ridiculous that assessment is.
Right.
And all the destruction in Ukraine shows
and
how ridiculous that assessment is.
And you know who began that assessment? Vladimir Putin. This is over in 4 days.
Let me tell you something.
So that's where it's coming from, and he started this war, and he's going to be finished with it. As President Kennedy said in his inaugural address, those who choose to ride the tiger often end up inside.
Let me say what Russia did do wrong, okay? Russia...
We don't have that kind of time.
Be a wise guy. Russia, okay, rather than forcing its soldiers under false pretenses, which Prigozhin has tried to alert him to, all right? Letting him know, all right, that the messages with his message on Telegram, which was that the march on Moscow, okay, was because he felt that Putin was being deceived by his generals for the special operations, that he had been deceived, okay? I believe that may well have been the case, which is why I think that out of fear, okay, Putin moved. And we should have realized that it was out of fear. And before this became a military conflict, there should have been negotiations. Okay?
You can't
the reality
realize
is,
that
wait,
instantly.
let me finish. Because the reality is, Russia is not in such a great economic situation that it should be conducting this war. On
Right.
the other hand, what they should be doing, perhaps, is instead of looking to the past, okay, and their empire of the past is looking, as Saudi Arabia does, to the future. Saudi Arabia is using its funds to create an entire futuristic city called Neon, with a section of the city that's going to be known as the Line. It's going to be an elevated section over the desert. And they're creating a section 20 miles long. It's going to be 10 years in planning,
Right.
with teams of architects.
Right.
And the idea is to use that space, which otherwise would be desolate,
Right.
for population, and
Right.
have millions populating a 20-mile strip
Right.
in a very futuristic setting.
Right.
Russia is a huge land. That's how Russia and Putin should be looking at the use of their money.
Interesting, because Saudi Arabia is contributing $10 billion to the project, and they do have a name for it already.
Yes.
On several buildings, a golf course, a golf club, and several office towers. And the name is, and this may be a stretch, so let's all take a breath. The name is TRUMP. Trump, 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 Trump. Let's all go out for the big team.
That's
that's
ignorant
absolutely
and
true.
uninformed, and you have no idea.
Sorry, you keep saying that.
Idea. Trump has nothing to do
He
with
has
this
everything to do with it. He has everything to do with it, and the papers have been signed because you're ignorant of it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Why would you say that? You don't know what's in my ideas. That's just presumptuous.
Listen,
the fact is, it's Trump. It's Donald J. Trump and the Trump organization. That is the truth. It's absolutely informed.
False,
you may want to read a newspaper once in a while, so you find out the truth. I know it's inconvenient for you. I know that you really want to be more diverse
in the information that you get.
Right. That's true.
You might want to be a little bit more diverse in the information you get.
Okay, so then the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal lie. I get it.
No,
I didn't realize that.
But they have a particular point of view.
Okay. Well, I have a good feeling about it, except you talk over me a lot. But other than that, I would say that you made some very good points today about Saudi Arabia. You brought up some good points about, I don't agree with them, but the points about the U.S. contributing more weaponry earlier and air cover earlier in the first few days or weeks of the war. And I think that that's something to be considered by the nation and the world. And you brought up some good points about NATO not fully paying their bills until the end of the last administration. And I'm hearing, too, that you agree that Putin has made some real tactical errors, and it's cost him and it cost his country. And the last thing in the world that is going to happen, and that we both want to see, is Soviet Union 2, including all of the land that occupied, along with the adjunct countries. So I think you brought a lot of attention and truth to this endeavor, and we're going to do a lot more of it.
I feel, my darling Ron, that you are extremely generous, and I thank you very much. And I totally agree with you with the missteps that Russia has taken, and Putin in particular has taken. And the fact is that the agreements between the countries in NATO that Biden has pulled together have been impressive, though I don't agree necessarily with that empowering them more. But certainly it has been a Herculean effort, and he's pulled it off.
Well, I want to say again, thank you to you. And if you let me, I'd love to buy you a cafe con leche at a cafe around the corner. Are you up for it?
Yes, boy, could I use one. Thank you.
I get it. And by the way, this has been Ticia on half of her cylinders. The best is yet to come. And so thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yes, round 2 coming soon.
Absolutely. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Civil Dissent. If you agreed with a view you've heard today, or if you have thoughts of your own, go to our website, civil.senate.gov, to find references where you can make a real difference.
On our website, we are hosting a competition. Send in your most meaningful quote, including if you make one up, and we will use the winning quote at the end of the show and send you a $25 Amazon gift card. Submit quotes by August 1st, 2023.
Take action, and see you next time on Civil Dissent.